from wherever we see fit. But
so it's recording now.
About a fist, yeah. About a fist from that mic.
Really close.
Yeah. It doesn't sound right if not, unfortunately.
Okay.
It sounds like you're a million miles away.
So about there. Yeah. Okay. Ah, cool.
Can you
Really?
get in close? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You brought notes, Mike.
Well, yes. I brought notes because when we spoke last time, I did a deep dive into my alcoholic past, and I watched it back sort of a couple of months afterwards, and quite frankly, I think it benefited me as much as it might have other people, looking to understand stuff, about that sort of life and maybe think about it. So I really enjoyed that deep dive. So we don't need to do that again because we've already done that. But I think we'll probably talk on that stuff.
Sure.
But
What was the benefit?
The benefit to me was the clarity of what can I say? Not the error of my actions, but the hopelessness of it, and then the transition out of it. So looking back to see the depth of despair, if you like, of that sort of life, even though, as I said, I was sort of fairly high functioning, kept jobs down and provided for the family financially, but probably not spiritually in any way. So it was, Alex, I gave up drinking 22 years ago. 22 years ago. And I actually now feel that is gone. That's the past. I hold no resentment to myself anymore about that. I'm a bit sad for myself that I seem to use that wonderful part of my life, that sort of time in the middle of my life, and screwed it up, fucked it up big time. But I'm out of that now,
Yeah, you know the Johnny Cash song "Hurt," don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's Nine Inch Nails are called. Trent Reznor.
Well, he sung it. Well, he wrote the song when he was 20, and they were saying, as brilliant a song as it was, like when a 20-year-old sings about regret, it's like, oh, that's sad, but you've got 60, 70, 80 years to put it right. When Johnny Cash sings it a month before he dies, it's a very different song.
Yes.
Because he's at an age where he's like, I can't go back and right some of the wrongs.
Yes.
It's quite a painful thought.
No, yeah, absolutely. And he's saying it perhaps how Trent Reznor, the Nine Inch Nails, thought it might have sounded to the people he was singing it to.
Yeah.
But you're right. Stripped back with that old voice of Johnny Cash's, it becomes deep and meaningful for a lot of people. When a young man writes it and just talks about the fact that he's, sort of into drugs and he really needs to pack that sort of thing up and it's ruining him, you're right, he gets a chance to put all that right. As many celebrities do, arguably, musicians and people like that. I mean, how many of the people that that you admired when you were younger, they were making music and they're now in their 40s, 50s, even 60s, saying, well, of course I gave up the booze, 20, and things like that, drugs and booze. I kind of would have liked to have listened to myself around that time, so that I could have stopped, the drinking earlier. Because I had to go through the classic sort of phase, if you like, where I had to reach the pits to work it through. Whereas if someone had sat me down, pushed me up against a wall and sort of held me really hard and just explained to me what's going on, you're an intelligent man, Mike, this is what you're going to do. You're going to screw up all your relationships, all the, you're going to put your family under pressure and pain, all that sort of stuff. If you stop it now, 10 years in, you can save all that and maybe, survive better. That would have been good.
I think it would have made a difference, though.
Don't know. Honestly, don't know. But only because I knew I had to stop drinking, 10 years before I did.
But isn't that why it's the crazy, like, life is just such a strange epiphany? Because you kind of know that what you're doing is going to eventually be the thing that you know is not right, but we still don't stop. So it's almost an epiphany. You go, oh fuck, I nearly died. Drink nearly killed me. But you kind of already knew that. But it's like the reality when it hits home just seems to be so much more than we can ever think in our heads it's going to be. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Because of course, at the time, all you're doing is having a drink.
But who's thinking then as well? So rationally now you can look back and go, oh, if someone had explained. But if someone had explained to you whilst you've been under the influence of several large vodkas, it's like, is that the mic that's listening? Or is it somebody else?
No, absolutely not. And just like now, if I'm out, sober sort of out, and I meet someone, and I'm not saying family because I understand family and how and how that works, and people should be able to have a drink. It's a great release and what have you. But if I meet a drunk in a pub or something like that on my travels, I realise it's pointless having a conversation with this person.
Yeah,
this person is drunk.
Sure.
and nothing you will say really is kind of getting through. They have their own agenda, as I had my own agenda. So no, someone talking to me. But I would, when you're an alcoholic, you do spend probably half the day not drinking. So there were moments I could have been caught. But actually no, maybe that's just wishful thinking that someone could have shocked me out of it, halfway through.
Yeah, I was with Mum and Dad yesterday doing my Mum and Dad Thursday like we normally do, and I said I was seeing you today. And Mum said, oh, it's nice that you've kept in touch with Mike after all these years. And I was like, yeah, it really is. In fact, we've become better friends as time has passed. I kind of sat back and thought, well, out of all of the hundreds of people that I've worked with, why is Mike one of the few that I've not only remained in touch with, but developed a stronger relationship with? And I think it's because of all those things, It's because of what you went through and the fact that you've turned it round. So I could argue that you wouldn't be a Team GB athlete if you hadn't have been an alcoholic. And that's probably one of the things that I admire about you. It's the ability to take that situation that you were in and transform it into what it is now. Because again, I see myself with those battles. I'm like, if Mike can do that, then I can change myself too. I think that's important. I think it's important to have older friends that have more wisdom than you too. I don't know why younger men don't do it. So you're 30 years older than me.
Yes.
And every time we go out, I learn. I have a great time, and two, I learn so much. I'm like, isn't that fucking amazing?
And it's one of the things I want to talk about today, funnily enough, because I've learned some new stuff. So we'll probably get into that. I quite often think, about drink and drugs, which I suppose now is endemic in the world, because we have a life to live, but we like to relax and we like to have a good time and we like to get away from the construct of work and DIY and all that sort of stuff. And so these things exist, drink and drugs. But actually, I can't really think of anything that you do better on drink and drugs. I think it just it stops you being your best self, I suppose. Now,
Here's your coffee, by the way.
Super.
Oh, lovely. I'll have the tea. Thank you. Thanks for that. It's busy today. Good luck. Yes, that makes sense. However, do you think there's an argument where sometimes, okay, let's swing it back. I feel sometimes I'm who I want to be after a few beers. I worry less and I'm more outgoing and I can be more fun. I can relax a bit more. I'm not so serious.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a tipping point, right? That you go past that and actually, Alex, you're just being a bit of an idiot now.
Yeah.
But yeah, after a few beers, which is quite sad when you really sit back and think about it. However, it's in social situations especially, a few beers and you know what, I'm all right. I'm happy.
Well, you know, one of the things that the booze will do, of course, will take away some inhibitions. It'll take away shyness. I mean, you know, it is a good analogy. You go to a wedding, you know, and you know some of the people there and you don't know the others, and you know how weddings go. You know, at the end, you know, it's a bar and it's a darkened room with loud music, so it's difficult to talk to people, and there's a dance floor. Well, I have to say, as a sober person, getting up on that dance floor is really tough. Even though I can move a bit, you know, I can strut my stuff if I need to. But with a couple of drinks or a few drinks, that all goes.
Yeah, it does.
You know, the dance floor is a magnet, and so you know, arguably that's a good thing. But I've learned so much from being sober, learning to cope in situations that are better handled with some booze. I've learned, and I kind of get that. You know, it's been really helpful for me now moving into this last phase in my life, I'm going to call it. You know, I'm much stronger as a person. I understand people much more because I'm able to observe them and make rational decisions about how they are and how to communicate with them best. And that's all because the booze is gone. Now, don't get me wrong. You know, I remember being able to get on that dance floor and have a good time. And that is so much better than being sober and having to do it. But I choose sobriety, you know, so.
Yeah. You talk about this I think you always refer to it as the last stage?
Phase.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Which I guess is true. However, we don't know how long that stage is, of course. It could be 30 years, in that case it's a long time, right?
Yes.
How are you approaching it?
Well, okay, so I'm 67, going on 68. And I consider, or I feel, that this is clearly the last phase of my life. And I don't know how long it is, but you know what? The Office for National Statistics, the governmental office, have told me when I'm going to die. Whenever you get involved in pension plans and things like that, the financial advisors, you know, sort of check you out, primarily sort of age, lifestyle, gender, and all that sort of stuff. And the Office for National Statistics say I'm going to die at 87.
Okay.
That's what they consider is, you know, with all the information they have, you know, the average lifespan of a person like this. Now, I can influence that clearly, but, you know, that's about it. So, you know, they think I've got 20 years left. So it's clearly the last phase of my life, even if it lasted a bit longer, and arguably it could last a bit shorter, you know.
Someone asked me the other day if you could know the date that it was all going to come to an end, would you want to know?
That's a film, isn't it? That's kind of a movie.
It is,
you know?
but it's something I can answer. Well, actually, I edged towards no, I wouldn't. But then I had to start thinking, well, why wouldn't I want to know? Is it just denial?
Yeah.
Or is it just too much fear? I just can't handle that much fear.
Well, it would be very relaxing up until, you know,
the
last
depends.
Period of time.
Surely it depends. If it's 2 years' time, is it relaxing?
Well, no, that's useful. If it was 2 years' time, you look at your pension fund and your house and you liquidate all of that.
And you go to town.
And you just go round the world and have a blast, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's tempting not to start drinking, I don't know what is.
I know. It's a difficult one, that.
Yeah.
But do you view it like that, as though, look, I've got till 87 and I'm going to make sure I make the damn most of it?
No. Let me ask you a question. What age do you want to live to? Now, notice I didn't say, when do you want to die? What age do you want to live to? Doesn't have to be a specific age, but you know, within sort of 5 years.
I've never thought about it.
Well, this is my mantra today. You should think about it.
I think about things coming to an end.
Yes.
But I don't think about time frame.
Well,
so what I do think about is living my life now. Because I still have a fight with meaning and purpose, because I know it's all going to come to a crashing end, right? And I don't just mean that in a cynical point. I mean, in a million years, what we do today will mean nothing, right?
yeah.
So you kind of know that, like, so that there's
unless you do something that gets into the history books.
Yes, but even those history books eventually will blow up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it will all come to it. Even what Elon's doing, Elon Musk with his rockets to Mars and stuff like. Yeah. Even that, you know, at some point in the universe will count for nothing. So you're like, okay, well, I can't think that far ahead, otherwise everything's pointless. So you might start to think towards the end of your life or whatever. But the only place I can find meaning is now, like in what we're doing. Well, it's the only place that I can find meaning and purpose.
Sure, but you haven't answered the question.
No, I haven't. I thought I was supposed to be asking the questions today, man.
Yeah, and you can do, but I just want you to think about this, because I think anybody who watches this, I'd like them just to think about it as well. Look, and a clue might be, or if you like, a way of thinking about it might be, who do you know at an age that you think, oh, that would be nice, you know, to get to?
Well, my mum and dad are 67. You're a great example of how I want to be at that age. But for me, it's not just how long do I want to live, it's how do I want to live my life. So I would take 65 being healthy over 85 being really ill with poor mobility. So it's not just how long, it's the quality. Yeah. And this is something I try and teach as well. You know, people talk about, well, you know, when your time's up, it's up. Yes, but as we both know, it's like, surely in that time you want to live the best life you can possibly live. One, in terms of health and fitness, like you want to be able to get off the couch when you're 70 without, you know, your knees being destroyed. You want to be able to go and enjoy life. Imagine retiring, man, and being so out of shape and overweight that you can't move. You've worked all those years for this. So in that case, no, I wouldn't want to see 85.
Yeah.
So I do find that hard to answer.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm quite a goal-orientated person. I've decided, as you know, when I chose to take up triathlon 12 years ago now, I kind of couldn't do it for fun. You know, the nature of me wanted to compete. And luckily, triathlon organisation, compete in age groups. So actually, you can do races and then look at yourself against people of a similar age. So it's a great way. And most sports do this now. Running, cycling, individual, and all this sort of stuff. So I'm goal orientated. So I thought to myself, well, set a goal for how long you want to live for. And that's an interesting thing, isn't it? How long would you like to live for? And I'm thinking, well, I know my granny lived till she was 100. My mum and my dad passed away in the last 10 years, and they made it to sort of 89, and my mum was 91. So why not the 90s? Why shouldn't I make the 90s? Now, if I'm going to do that, and it's not going to be a shit life, as you just described, then what am I going to do to make sure it's a good life, and I've been thinking about this. I mean, I've written some stuff down, so I'm going to...
Sure, and by the way, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that way of thinking. I've never thought about picking an age that you want to live for as a goal.
And that's why I wonder if this is a new thing. It's certainly new for me. But you know what? It's the old sort of joke, isn't it? When you say to somebody, stop your car, and you say, how do I get to so-and-so? And the person says, well, I wouldn't start from here.
Yeah.
So and it's a bit like that. I've started thinking about it now, coming up to 68, with the last 12 years of running, cycling, swimming my arse off So I'm landing here at my age reasonably fit, weight wise. I stopped drinking 20 years ago, so I have a sort of fairly clean lifestyle. So my physical health is good, my fitness is good, but there's other things as well. And it's not just, nobody lives on their own. Some people do. Forgive me if I've sort of pointed out the wrong. But
I do, yeah.
But most, But you have relationships, yeah. And therefore, when you get to the age which is your final phase, and you're saying to yourself, well, if I'm fit and healthy, why shouldn't I, live until my 90s? Then at the same time, you've got to realise that life is not just a solo trip. It's relationships. It's financial comfort. It's so many things. Your family, and so I spoke when I met some of your guys, and something dawned on me that at the moment, I'm married, in a relationship with Christine, and it's wonderful. And you know why it's wonderful? It's because we have the patience with each other to live together, and yet we're quite different people. And we have the experience to know when someone's having a bad day, when they're having a good day. We don't resent each other in any way. And yet, I remember in my life, and I see people together where the relationship doesn't allow that kind of, acceptance of each other, and it's always someone's fault, or, I have to wait around for you, whatever it is. Now, so if I just talk about a standard life, and I realise there are loads of different ones, many people will find a partner, live with them, probably have children. Those children will grow up, and for that period of time, they'd be totally focused on making sure, the kids are all right and they're looked after, and you have a family and the whole thing. And then those kids grow up and go away, and you are back together with the person you started with. And if you haven't taken the time to really understand the person, to accept their foibles, their weird ways of working, to accept the things that irritate you about them, because everyone has that, are actually just them, just living their life, and it's fine. If you haven't done that, all of a sudden you're back together again, alone, together. And what you want is them to join you in this last phase, and for it to be a partnership and fun, and be relaxed, and all those things. And I think during my lifetime that I kind of hadn't planned for that. Realizing that you started on your own, and you partnered with someone, you decided that was going to be it. And in the middle of the year, it all became things you had to do, and children you brought up, and all that sort of stuff. And then you come back together, and it needs to be the relationship that you started when you fell in love. It needs to be that, or better.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Look, there's loads of things you've said there that we could unpack. So the first thing that jumps out to me is like, well, could you live possibly longer if you have the things that you've just mentioned that are worthy in your life? So good relationships, good communication. Can that keep you on this planet for 10 years longer? Possibly. Certainly gives you reasons to improve and yourself, and to get out of bed and make someone else's life better rather than just your own. Yeah. So I can see that. Having meaning, purpose in your life.
But even if it doesn't help you live longer, because there are other probably more practical things it does, it'll certainly make sure that part of your life is fun and interesting and relaxed, and effective,
Sure,
fulfilling.
sure, yeah. Well, this is, are your cards marked from an early age, or can you influence how long you live by everything you do? Who knows?
Okay, so for all the people who are quite rightly saying, yeah, but what happens if I get cancer, or what happens if I get hit by a car? I can't consider that. I can't control the things I can't control. Okay, so I need to deal with the things I can. So let's get really practical, I suppose. Physical health. I've just bought a house. We just moved. And for the first time in about, 15, 16 years, we got stairs because we lived in a flat before.
And your own garden.
And our own garden, yeah.
Can't wait to visit, by the way.
But and we're making up your room now.
Sure,
so
man, that'd be cool.
but we got stairs. And you know what? I'm pretty fit, but I'm down those stairs sort of 40, 50 times a day, it seems. And I've discovered muscles I didn't have. So what I mean is, I know that into my 70s, my 80s, it's going to get harder. Well, if I wasn't fit, if I was overweight, if I was, not me, but somebody else, that would get really hard. That wouldn't be much fun. You can see why people buy bungalows, can't you, or get stair lifts. But I intend to climb those stairs until I drop dead. You know what I mean? My intention is to stay fit. And do those things. If my mum had told me you shouldn't listen to music that loud, as I did at home and in the car for 30 years, I probably wouldn't be wearing hearing aids now, as I do, which are great. But if I take them off, it's like, it all goes quiet. And so I have, during my lifetime, impacted this last part of my life because I didn't take care of the things that wear out. Yeah? And things do wear out. Getting even more practical and to bring it down, does everyone brush their teeth properly? When you get older, things get older. And they cost money and they hurt, and you know what I mean? There's a way of moving into this last phase of your life better prepared by just keeping an eye, making sure the oil's topped up and all that sort of stuff.
No, I get you. I hear you. But do you think this gratitude that you've got and this wisdom and knowledge that you've got is because of the places that you didn't want to go? So, is life so much better now because you've seen what it could potentially be like if you don't do those things? I'm always wondering that. It's like, would you appreciate it? Would you work as hard on yourself now if you hadn't been through all that stuff?
There are some key things. Well, would I? I'm lucky that the hindsight I have is that because I gave up the booze 22 years ago and then sort of got into a life of fitness a little bit after that. I've arrived at this time happy with how I am. If I'd arrived at this time overweight, unfit, unhappy with people around me, I'd just be thinking life's shit.
But you're happy with who you are as well, right? Not just how you look.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, who
yes.
you are.
Yes. I mean, look, I think we get to learn to understand each other, ourselves, don't we? We know what we're good at, what we're bad at, what is, unacceptable, that we, have that we mustn't do, and yes, I'm the typical poacher turned gamekeeper, aren't I? I'm now in better shape mentally, physically. I have goals, I have hobbies. I've got a great family and relationships. And so it's easy for me to look out and think everyone should be like this. But you don't think about it, and that's what I mean about coming up to the last phase of your life. You don't realise it's the last phase of your life, I think, until you get into that, let's call it retirement zone.
Yeah.
Okay. And all of a sudden, you find, what would typically happen to people, given normal circumstances, people start dying. Parents, friends' parents, and then you get a little bit older, and then your friends, and so mortality becomes a real thing, not just this thing in the future that happens to other people. And so getting there, this is the last phase. I wouldn't want to, for example, get to the phase where I'm retired, living with my partner and not have any interests and think, oh, I'll take something up. You don't do that. It's you'd have done it already if you wanted to do it.
Yeah, I think it's one of one of the best excuses that comes out a lot. I'll do it when I've got time, or I'll do it when I've retired. And you're right, it very rarely happens. But that situation you've just described, I think that happens throughout your whole life. So I think when you're in your 20s, your early 20s, you never really believe you're going to be 30. When you're 30, you never think you're going to be 40. When you're 40, you never think you're going to be 50. So I think that cycle continues. Like, I can't imagine myself being 65 years of age. That's not going to happen, man. It's just not. But then you start catching yourself in the mirror and you just see things changing.
Yes.
I saw this last week. I was like, I could see the potential 10-year plus Alex in me. I've never seen that before. It was a little bit frightening. Yeah. But also it's good urgency. It's like when you can really understand that you're not going to be here forever.
No. But I've got here by mistake. I was a drunk. I sobered up. I got fit and started doing things. So I've landed at this stage in the shape I would have wanted to 30 years ago had I sat down and thought about it, but I didn't. So mine is good fortune, arguably. I quite often get told when, someone wants to know my age or something like that, wow, you don't look it. Well, that's great. I don't feel it either, whatever that is meant to be at 67. But you know what? Getting to this age, things start happening. You do start to feel older. The face does start to change. So it's happening now, okay? But I don't feel it. And you at 65, I guarantee now with your lifestyle, you'll get a 65 and you'll still feel great and mentally you'll be good. But your body will start to fail. It will have to, because that's the aging process. But you're not like most people, and I'm not. Most people aren't as focused on their fitness. Most people, and they should be. They should be now, so that when they arrive at retirement, as we've called it, or mid-60s, or whatever it is, that they're in a good state, a good base then to try and prolong whatever life they have.
Yeah, you use the word you'd feel fortunate to be where you are. Do you see it as fortune, or could you argue that it was always going to be that way? No,
when I was young, before I, if you like, got into the booze, because that's an escalation, so that happened over years. But I was young, I was fit, did sport, never really put on too much weight. Until my sort of 40s and what have you. And all that's happened is, stripping away all the things that were distracting me, I've just become myself again. I've just become this person who's reasonable at sport. I've got the mentality and the discipline to eat properly, not drink and all those things.
Was that... Yeah, okay, so when can you trace the start of the alcoholism back? So would you go back as like very, very young kid, or would you go back as an adult? Like, are there things that happened in your life that were out of your influence that meant that you ended up where you were?
Well, the answer to that is I don't know. I do know, because I can remember, that I would always do things slightly over the top. Okay, so
what age are we talking?
16 onwards.
Okay,
probably. I mean, there was a big drug thing going on at 16. It was a time where that was all getting organised, and you could buy wacky backy, you could buy speed, you could buy LSD, heroin, and some people didn't touch it, but I was a bit of a dabbler. And booze wide would always go over the top, and then not do anything for weeks. So I suppose I had it in me, and then my lifestyle or my life's activities, work and play and things like that, brought the opportunity and of course the maturity. I'm allowed to drink, I'm allowed to do what I want, I have the money to do it, so let's just get on and do it. That then fueled the opportunity, and I like being slightly, not sober, if you like, like you, have a couple of drinks and the world's all right. Well, I just made that a lifestyle.
Well, it's that classic thing of like, well, how much pleasure is too much pleasure? It's no longer a pleasure, right? It's the food that we eat. It can be a pleasure, but too much of it means you're 5 stone overweight, and no longer is that a pleasure. It's the thing that kills you. So there's a fine line. It's knowing how much is enough, and it's you knowing yourself well enough to be able to make that decision.
And isn't that a massive dilemma for people? I mean,
Huge.
massive, because food is lovely.
Yeah.
And booze is arguably lovely.
Sure.
But actually, if you could think about a plan where you said, you know what, I definitely want to get into my 80s and 90s, then actually I need to curtail some of this stuff now, because otherwise I won't be in the shape. I won't be able to fight off the challenge of maybe some diseases I get. You could get diabetes, heart disease and things like that. And so if you kind of knew that if you just curtail it back, you actually might then extend the period you're on this life. Your mortality might just be influenced by that.
As crazy as it sounds, I don't think that's enough for people, because as we've said, when you're 20, being 30 isn't real.
No.
And I think we still think like this. It's hard for us to ever think 30 years ahead.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to imagine that, or even, I guess, motivate ourselves to behave as if we know what's best for us.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just touch on something then more practical. And you and I have spoken in the past about this. How much at the age of 70, when you're not working and unable to earn, how much will you need to live on? Just like an annual. People understand annual salaries, so just think.
So from the age of,
say 70.
So from 70. You and a partner, or probably 30, 35.
Right. And how much does the government give you as a pensioner?
That I don't know. I reckon it's must be cracking on individually. I'd say 6.5, 7.
10.
Okay, it's better than I thought. Yeah.
So this is a sum. You can do this. Here you are. But have you paid off your mortgage, or are you renting? Do you want to run a car? Do you want to go on holiday? Do you want to buy some clothes when they wear out? Yeah? So arguably, two people working together as a team, then each getting 10 grand off the government, because that's the pension that you get, you still need another £10,000 a year to hit your minimum base you just mentioned. And then you want that 20 years, might get to 90. Yeah? So you want it for 20 years. Yeah? Yeah? So that's £200,000 in cash on top of the government, just to get you a basic lifestyle that probably doesn't run 2 cars, it runs 1. It probably, pays for a cinema, sort of season card or something like that.
Okay.
But it's not enough, probably, to be relaxed about money. Maybe 40 years, yeah? So now, if you're going to live 20 years after 70, you need £400,000 in the bank before you start.
Yes. Let me push back on that one.
Okay.
And create a dilemma. So someone is listening to this and they're 50, right?
Yeah.
And they're on track. So that when they're 70, they're going to be in that financial position you just said, where they don't really have to stress too much about money. But they fucking hate what they do for a living.
Yeah.
And it's stealing their soul.
Yeah.
And the risk is that they perhaps go and pursue something that they really love in the last 15 years of their working career, but it might threaten that security that they're going to have when they're 70. What do they do then?
And that's a good question. So if they're in the middle of their life, they probably already have some savings. So that's kind of banked, arguably. Is that banked? I guess.
Well, let's just say it's a shootout between run the risk of getting 70 with no financial security, but chase your dreams for the next 20 years versus stay in the secure job that you dislike, yet when you're 70, you've got this cushion, this security.
But do these dreams they are chasing, if this change of work from, punching the card, as you might say, doing something that they hate, if they move to something they like, it would still be generating cash for them? Is this or are they going to become a traveller and live from in which case they will have had 30 years of learning how to live off the land, and they may just carry on doing that afterwards. I don't know. And they'd be used to a lifestyle that isn't monetized, perhaps.
Yeah, and it's hard to say, plan what's realistic, because 25 years ago you representing Great Britain, and competing in Ironman 70.3, you could argue that might not have been a realistic goal back then. You could argue from your starting position. And it's interesting how life pans out. It very rarely, if ever, works out how we think it's going to. So I think there's a skill between too much planning versus not enough.
Yeah.
Because somebody said to me, Alex, one of the best pieces of advice I can give you is you do not want to get old and be broke.
Yes.
Yeah. So he said that. But on the same spin, the same sentence, he's saying you also don't want to spend the next 20 years doing something you despise.
Yes.
So it's like, both make total sense.
Absolutely. But I have to pull you up on doing something you despise. There probably are very few people in the situation where they despise something. They might not having much fun. It's a bit of a, here we go again, that type of thing.
Yeah, or they think they can do something better with their life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I'd certainly be saying, do that. It's a really tricky one.
Yeah, I don't think there's a right answer, by the way. I don't think we're going to sit here and create a right answer.
No, there isn't. But you see, moving to this last phase, as I said, where, I may have 20 years left. So I live 67. So it's coming up to less than 25% of my lifespan coming up. You know what I mean? I can't change anything now. I can't create the life I need now. I've done that. I've been forming that in the last 60-something years. Okay. And I don't mean the serenity of doing something you'd like to do, like, surfing Malibu Beach or, whatever they do, Malibu Beach, and I don't mean that type of thing. I mean living. I mean practically living so that it frees you up to be relaxed, to be able to read a book without thinking that, the oil price has gone up and your gas costs a fortune and what have you. I've arrived at this stage where I can get on with my life because, this aspect of financial stability is just enough so that I ain't concerned. When you're younger, arguably you shouldn't have to think about that. But you should. I say to my kids, you will retire and then you will live a long time. Just make sure that you've planned to do that.
Yes, and that's where the dilemma slots in beautifully, isn't it? It's, well, what do I do with that information? Does that mean I know life is short, so I'm going to roll the dice and pursue exactly what I want, even if it means I might get to 70 and not be in that luxurious position? Or do I play it safe and run the risk that my life might end much shorter than I ever think it will, and I never really explore what I want to do with my life? Again, personal choice, difficult one. We're all in that dilemma. And there's nothing to say, by the way, that at 67 you can't bring in more finance. So there's been some amazing businesses set up. I think Walmart was set up by a guy who was 70. Grey Goose, I think. He was 68, 70, something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, you've got energy, Mike.
Yeah.
Haven't you?
Absolutely.
There's nothing to stop you setting up a photography business or whatever it is.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So there is that to fall back on. It's not over.
Yes. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I do feel, though, that at the age I am now, if I don't know the things I like doing, then I'll be surprised. In other words, if I wanted to set up a photography business, I'd have done it by now. I don't need to, because my pension sums kind of work out, and so it's all right. And instead, I'm going to do photography and enjoy it, and do it as much as I can. A bit like my son does music, in the sense that he's a really serious musician. He's a very, very good musician. But he understands, he teaches as well. He understands that the music is a serious hobby. It's not a way to make money.
Not yet.
No. Either not yet, or it makes enough money so that when he is retired, he can carry on doing that.
Yeah.
And sustain some income from it.
But a lot of businesses start as interests, don't they? They start as hobbies, and then over time they deepen into passions, and they can become purposes. So like Ben wouldn't be able to go from someone who's never done music to making money from music, but over years of the art of craft of development,
yes,
that could be a potential goal of his. See, I disagree with you about if you'd have done it by now. One, I think life gets consumed by other things, and that would be a bit like saying, well, Mike, the music that you like now will always be the music you like, and that food that you enjoy, you're not going to enjoy any new food, so don't bother trying. And I'd be like, no, actually, Mike, try this food, man. Try this music. Try this hobby. Try this. I think there's even more opportunity now, because what you've got now is you've kind of got time, but you haven't, if that makes sense. Day-to-day time you have, but it's just shrunk down into a bit of a tighter vacuum. So it's like, well, maybe you can discover new shit.
Yeah. Very
maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a choice, isn't it? Do you not decide, I'm going to discover? Because I always think purpose is born from discovery. So if you think of discovery like playing, trying, testing, and then purpose coming from the result of trying, testing, playing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, what you like when you try it.
Yes.
So let's go and try some cool stuff.
True. I think that where I am at the moment, and the things that I have to do, and with moving home and everything else, I suspect that I would use the skills I have if I needed to make money.
Yes.
If I needed to supplement my income.
Or wanted.
And I'm in my head, I'm sort of confident that I could probably, make that work. I don't need to at the moment.
Is it need or want, though?
Oh, no. I want to take photographs. I want to swim, bike, run.
Sure.
I want to spend time with my family and all those things.
That's what I think I mean, Mike. You're no longer in a position where you need to do anything.
No.
It's what you want to do now.
Yes.
And you might want to read a book and spend time with Christine. Yeah. And that sounds fantastic. I think that's the position that you've worked so hard to get yourself into.
Yeah.
You can start picking what you want to do. And I think that's what finances do for you too.
Yeah.
They allow you to, like, if you want to get up and read today, you can. If you want to get up and work your ass off today, you can.
Yeah.
That's what I think the finance really does for you.
Yeah.
There must be nothing worse than being 70 and needing to earn money still, and you've still got to dig your hand in and get, go to work, and you really don't want to. You want to kick back. Must be tough. So I understand that. It makes total sense to me. Yeah. I'm just wondering, like, how do you get there without destroying the middle part of your life, or not making the most of your middle part of life?
Well, we're probably spending too much time on finance, and we're not financial advisors, by the way. Yeah. But to answer that question, I think an awareness of what you need to do creates a situation where you can, if you like, start saving early, put some aside, so that it kind of happens and you carry on with your life normally. It's the point I'm making is that if you don't think about these things in time,
sure,
and arguably the government make you do it, because now by law, if you work for a company, they you have to have a pension scheme in it, even for very small companies. So they are doing that, and you know what? It's in the end, it's just one of those things you don't want to hit the wall at 65 and say, where do I go from here?
Sure. And I think there's even talk, isn't retirement age now being shifted up a year, isn't it? Like 68 for men?
I would have thought by the time that you retire, it'll be 70.
Yeah, probably. So that's when,
And all that means, because you can retire when you want, by the way, all that means is that's when they'll pay you the pension.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's the difference. You know, when do they start having to contribute to the fact that you will probably not be employable, they think, and they do that through the pension scheme.
What was the biggest challenge of retirement for you? Because again, I've spoken to other people who've, it's portrayed as the moment we all want to reach in our life. Yeah, I've spoken to some guys at the gym, for example, that actually were a bit challenged when they retired, because their job was how they filled their time.
Yeah.
It was their purpose, it was their motivation, it was their drive. And then to all of a sudden get up one day and that not to be there, of like, I don't have to drive to the office today.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you find that? How was your transition experience?
Well, I was lucky in a very unlucky way in that at the beginning of the pandemic, the company I was working for decided it was going to scale back operations. It was an overseas company I was working for in the UK, and they were going to scale back operations because they were concerned about the market they were in and COVID. And so I was able to retire actually at the point I became 66. And so that decision was taken away from me, because in my head I think I was going to, I'll just keep going for a few years, because I'm this, I can do this job and I'm pretty good at it, and it's not particularly taxing now, and so I'll carry on and do it. And it'll be nice to have the extra cash, and we'll be able to do stuff. And it would have taken up 8 hours a day for 5 days a week forever. But they pulled the rug, and it was brilliant, because all of a sudden that decision was taken away. I felt no need to look for another job at the age of 66. I felt no need to do that. I had been getting up for years and years at about 5:15 in the morning, and also on Saturday to come up and train with you.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, it was like being on not holiday, but no restriction. I could just do what I want, relax. And then of course comes the, what am I going to do with my time? Well, as everyone who's retired will have told you, the first thing that happens is the things you do expand to fill the space that you have. So, you take longer to get round to things, and you do things maybe slower and better, and actually what the struggle for me has been is to start doing the things I want to do, not that I have to do. There's always a sort of a barrier to, photography. Before I retired, I bought all the kit I need for developing my landscape photography. Filters for the camera, lenses that would suit it. But to do landscape photography, you have to choose the time of day, the landscape that you want to photograph, and you have to organize yourself. And my photography has been taking really good, I think, composition shots when I've got my camera in my hand, depending on where I am. Well, going out and developing photography is about planning stuff. Have I had the time to do that? No. Literally, I've been that busy. I should take a week off and go to the Brecon Beacons and sit up on top of a hill somewhere with a tripod and wait for the clouds to be just right and the light to be this. But I haven't had that time. So that's kind of the issue I've had. How do I make the transition from the things I have to do, which are enjoyable? It's sort of living, everything from, going to gigs and cinema and shopping and whatever it is, to going and doing these things that I have hobby skills in, and making that happen. I need to, and I'm still saying to myself, nearly 3 years on, I've really got to organise this.
Yeah, well, some of the guys I've overheard, they've used the word like almost guilt. Like they get this feeling of guilt, like they should be doing something, and they use the word productive, abbreviated commas. Like it's having that, it's okay to relax, it's okay to enjoy my time.
Absolutely.
And it took them a while, from what I was hearing, to be okay with that.
Yes.
Because it was all drive, work.
Yes.
And that was, I think that's how men are judged, though,
Yes.
on their success.
Yes.
You know?
You're right. And it is a tricky thing, and it does mess with your head. You know, waiting to do something, having nothing to do in the afternoon, watching telly.
I know. Well, I sometimes struggle for a day. I
Yeah.
feel guilty. I feel like I should be doing something with myself. And again, but part of that is because of what we've spoken about. I know that life is so short. So part of me wants to relax and enjoy, and then there's a niggling part of me that says, no, Owen, don't waste your time. Let's go. So it's that internal conflict. But I think this is what when we go out and we speak a lot, something that's really apparent in you now is you like who you are. And I know you've worked hard to get that. I don't think that's just fallen into your lap.
No, that's true. No, that is true. I do like who I am.
Yeah.
I consider myself fortunate, if you like, that I was born like this, with this mindset and everything else, because not, everybody, gets dealt a different card, and I'm okay with mine, and I'm annoyed that I fucked up, sort of 20 years in the middle of it.
But I've seen the mindset evolve. So I'm wondering whether you've molded it, you've created it through the art of struggle and the art through the physical game. You transformed yourself into an Iron Man. So that not only was that a physical shift, but surely that was a mental. That was some serious rigor. That was some serious work. Like, you made yourself, right, through the art of that.
Yes.
From an outsider, by the way, that's how I see it. I'm like, Mike created the guy that he is today.
And that happened not because I decided, right, this is what I'm going to do.
Sure.
It happened because I realised a sober, healthy Mike could run, could cycle, and could swim. I can't throw a javelin very far or a discus, so I'm not going to do that. But I could do these other things, and then the person that I am, enabled me to organise myself. Do this properly, Mike. Okay, get a coach. Work with people who are like-minded, and be the best person that you can, and see where that gets you. Okay, and so my application to tasks is one of learning how to do them properly, as in, reading books or speaking to people, and then going out and having a go and finding out where your deficiencies are.
Sure. But this, a bit like Ben with the music, right? I think your interest started with, obviously you were weight training with me, and I think you went for a run, right? Like, that was the first thing you did. You weren't biking, you weren't swimming.
No.
So the passion that you have for Ironman or triathlon now started with just the interest and flirtation of going for a run.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can see how over a period of time, the flirting with a run no longer satisfies you, right? So you start to become a better runner. Then you start to see what it's like to sit in the saddle.
Yeah.
And then you jump in the sea and dip your toes in the water. Do you know what I mean? Over time, it's become a passion, but it's through the art of discovery and hard work that it's a passion. Because I think people fail to see in the middle. So they might see you with your medals and think, oh, that's amazing, Mike. But they very rarely take the time to look at step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yes.
Most people see it as step 1 and step 2.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot of people don't start. Well, I can't be an Ironman.
You know what? I mean, you're aware in the last 2 years I've had 2 hernia operations,
Of course,
which
yeah.
is fixed. Okay, and so to remind myself, I had to stop training, few weeks off, and the last one was only in August. So I'm getting back into it now, and I go for a run now, and I think, if I wasn't aware of this process I'm going to have to go through, why would I do it?
Yeah.
It's really hard work. You know what I mean? You get out of breath, you get sweaty, you get hot, it's hard work, it's not much fun. And so I must have had something 12 years ago when I started training that said, that's okay, just keep doing it, and you'll get better. And I went through that process, and I've gone through, getting fit, getting unfit, getting fit, getting unfit over these last years. But you take some time off and you become less fit. And I can see why the people I know who probably should be fitter, should lose a little bit of weight, I understand, I get it, why they don't do it. Because it's really hard work.
Yeah. Do you think you would have continued if you'd have started off from your your base point when you were unfit? Do you think if you'd have said to yourself, I'm going to train for an Ironman, do you think you would have had the same path, or do you think that would have just been too much?
No.
Too much.
Yeah. I think that the first thing that I learned was when I met some people who happened, to in the gym, who were actually triathletes, and told me what they did, and I started running. I was just interested in, well, you were all right. You were, when you were young, Mike, you were a bit of a runner. Never going to win too many gold medals, but you could do your bit. And so I thought that was fun and interesting. And then I got the numbers. I can do a 5K. That's great. And then they do a 10K, and a half marathons, only 21. And so I got into getting fit and doing these numbers, and measuring it. And I was interested in the process. And then someone said, you know what, you really want to get a coach, because if you want to get fit, they know how to get you fit.
Yeah. Yeah, but as the miles clock up, like, I can see it just as you're telling me, like, not only does your distance become further and faster, it's like the self-belief that you can do something starts to grow with your ability. Something I talk about a lot. If your ability's not where it needs to be, but your ambitions are sky high, there's a huge gap between what you can actually do and what you're aiming to do. Yeah. And I think the kind of training that you've done has been superb, because at each different goalpost, you've grew the character of your resilience, and you as a man has grown with it.
Yes.
So by the end of the Ironman, not only are you physically fitter, but you've got this inner resilience that you've trained, this grit, this ability to sit in the pain, endure it, and know that it's normal, and know that it's okay, and know that you can do it. Because come the Ironman, I'm guessing you're not sitting there thinking, I wonder if I can do this. You kind of know you can do it. You've trained for it.
Absolutely. I'm looking at the course and thinking, I wonder what time I can get here.
Yes.
I'm hoping, under 6 hours, but it might be a little bit long if it's a bit of a hilly. No, I'm absolutely.
The confidence.
I'm going to finish this, even though, trust me, on every run at the end, I always promise myself I'll never do another one as long as I finish this one.
But you're not at the start line going, I wonder if I can run half a marathon, because you've done the work, and the confidence always comes off the back of that.
Yeah.
So this is why it's difficult for, if we see you with your medals, it's amazing. But the first question I ask is not like, that transition's amazing. Like, how'd you get a gold medal? It's like, no, well, tell me about all the work that you did in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think that's a point that most people miss, because if I'm not willing to do that, Mike, by the way, I thought about doing an Ironman with you, didn't I? Do you remember?
Yes, I do.
And then we had a conversation about the 3-hour runs on a Saturday, the 4-hour bike ride, the going swimming in November or September, wherever it was, with your swimsuit on. I'm like, Alex, you ain't going to do that.
No.
So I tell you what, do yourself a favour, forget the Ironman. Yeah.
But do something.
Sure, but as long as that's something that is relation to what I'm prepared to do.
Absolutely.
Because that's quite painful. And by the way, this happens all the time. I really want to get into shape.
Yeah.
Oh, do you? Are you prepared to eat good food and skip the booze for a bit?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Right. Well, don't forget, I arrived in this after 10 years of sobriety, and so I didn't have to worry about skipping the booze.
Sure.
And I realised once I started training, I think in the first 3 months I lost 1.5 stone, and I didn't think I had anything to lose.
Yeah.
And so it just goes to show, doesn't it? And I thought, oh, you know what? I like this. And the distances, when you talk to people who maybe don't train and they're thinking of doing the couch to 5K and things like that, which is a absolutely great start for anyone.
Sure.
I started realising that, I was training, and when I went out for a run, I'd never do less than 5K. I mean, just that's kind of less than half an hour. Just, pop out for a run. And now if I go out for a run, depending on the training session I've been given, but I think nothing of popping out and doing 10, 15K. Well, I couldn't do that at this age, unfit and starting,
Duncan spoke about this too. He said that he found it really difficult to do anything in between. So if you're used to doing Ironman, for example, and then all of a sudden you're the guy who goes and does a 5K, that 5K can be much more difficult to motivate yourself to do than the 20K. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because it feels like it's not worth doing.
Absolutely. And if you like, after the hernia operation, Dermot, who you've heard me speak about, my tri coach, and he says, you know what? Just go out and do 5K a day for the next. Just get ease yourself back into it. And it's almost like, if I'm just going to run for half an hour, is it worth getting the shorts dirty and the top sweaty? And my head says, just keep going, which is clearly the wrong thing to do, because if you're not fit, all it does is hurt you and you ache afterwards and can't run the next 3 days. But you're right, it's difficult, and I have to be told not to overdo it when I'm getting fit.
But you still do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that stubbornness is a blessing and a curse. So it's the curse in the fact that, Mike, you're recovering, man. Slow down, you're going to hurt yourself. Yeah. The blessing is, Mike, you're an Ironman.
Yes.
That stubbornness, you need that.
Okay.
If you don't have that, you're like when I watched you in Zalmzee, people were dropping like flies, man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the great thing was there, I was like, Mike's not going to drop.
No.
Because I've seen you train like that. It was just another day in the office. Maybe a stressful one, sure.
Yeah.
But it was nothing you hadn't done every single Saturday since I've ever known you.
No, sure.
Do you know what I mean? So you've trained not only your body, but that mindset of I don't quit on things when they get tough, and that's powerful
for sure. But what I don't do, unlike the professional athletes who target podium places and top 3 and this, that, and the other, I would do it even if I ended up last in my age group.
I know you would.
And that's okay, because you know what? You can only beat the people in your age group, but the thousands who didn't even enter, you've beaten all them already.
I get it. I don't think you've never spoken to me about particular interest in podium finishes. I think the main reason you've done it is for you. Yeah, I think it's the way that you've made yourself better.
Yeah, you know what? I'm always really pleased with myself at the end of them, because wow, you did that.
Yeah.
Well done, you. When all I did was go out to do it, I suppose. And now, having been at my peak a few years ago, now I'm just trying to keep up with my old self, I suppose.
Sure. There is something really respectable and honourable, and it feels good when you do something that 99% of people could not or would not do. So I'm stood there watching you cross that line, and part of me goes, Alex, you're not willing to do that, Mike is.
No.
And that's kind of why I'll come anywhere and watch you participate, because it's inspirational.
But you would enjoy what I do, if you had trained as much as I had.
Sure,
because you'd be able to do it. It's like it's like you going on and bench pressing 100K. You've trained up to that.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling to get over 50. So.
Oh yeah. I get that. I get that. But like I say, I think it's all timing about. Do you know yourself well enough to not even bother starting something that you just know you're not willing to do?
Yeah.
The counter to that is, well, you only know what you're capable of if you go out and try it.
Yeah.
But I think the way in any goal approach is what you've done. It's, you start off on that 5K or 3K or whatever it is, and there's an element of, well, prove you can do this before you eye up 10.
Yeah.
If you can't do 5, why are you eyeing up 10? If you can't do a 10K, why are you eyeing up a duathlon? If you can't do a triathlon, forget the Ironman. It doesn't exist in your world. So there's a process, stripes to be earned almost, a ladder to climb.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no way you should enter a race of any type unless you are fit enough to finish it. Now, I would then say you should never enter a race unless you're fit enough to enjoy it.
Well, how many people do you think enter the race that potentially can't do it? Because from what I saw in Zalom, the swim, people were dropping. It was as if they hadn't ever swum a mile plus.
Well, and that's an interesting. I know you speak in hindsight now. If you're saying, well, I run a bit, I've got a bike, I cycle a bit, I've always fancied to look at this triathlon, what have you. In your head, it's quite easy to think, I'll do a half Ironman, or I'll do Olympic distance, because it sounds good. It's only when you do it that actually you realise just how tough it is. And luckily, I had good advice before I started. If you're going to enter it, don't enter anything for a year and start training now. And having that sort of advice and serious people around me, then by the time I got to where I was, and I was learning for the first time to do this triathlon, this long distance, it hurt like hell, but I did enjoy it, because I was able to finish it. I walked a little bit on the run, but I think I do every time,
Yeah, I think it makes some people's bucket lists occasionally.
Yeah.
Of like, I'd like to do it, which is cool, but you can tell there's two kinds of people there. There's people that have trained to get round that course and do it with pride and, like I say, a certainty that I can do this.
Yeah.
It's just about how I perform on the day.
Yeah.
Versus people that rock up and try and complete it. Yeah. That's the challenge for them. Can I complete an Ironman? Versus, well, I know I can, but how do I perform today?
And I have to say, most people who move into middle and long distance triathlon have done other things before they get there. So
Sure.
They understand the process and what have you. I did something different. I went from zero to middle distance triathlon in one go after training for 6 months, just because I was just so confident in my own ability. And that was, I have to say, that was naive of me. But luckily, I was, I left enough time to at least get decently fit to do that first one.
Well, look, if you want to be humbled, go out and try it. It will humble you, trying to do something like an endurance event.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good to be humbled occasionally.
Yeah,
I think especially for men, a lot of men do overestimate their willpower and their capability.
Yeah.
And it's only when you demand something of yourself like this that you realise, okay, I'm going to have to put time and effort in. But that's where you start to gain the respect for the people that do.
Yeah.
So, people, like I say, even maybe family and friends will look at you and it's just something you do.
Yeah.
But you can only experience that if you go and taste it yourself.
No, for sure. And I okay, just some things I've recognised recently or probably more than recently, but just sort of aware of them. So if I look at the stats, the Garmin stats it gives you, because I've been training for so long now, on average, I'm running 1,000 kilometres a year, and I'm cycling over 5,000.
Wow.
And it actually, that's just me training, and it's training at least 4 days a week, and sometimes 6 days a week, but it's at least that. And it's only when you sit down and think, okay, 50 weeks in a year, that means you're running 20k a week.
I was saying to Duncan, I don't think I'd do that in my car, Mike. I don't think my car's got as many miles on the clock as you this year.
But and you know what? There's something quite sort of satisfying in knowing that at my age, because most of this has been done in my 60s, I'm able to do that, and I'm not, if you like, I don't know really, it's not interrupting me. I'm finding time to do it. I did it while I worked.
Sure.
You have to have understanding people, or people who like a bit of breathing space from you, so they don't mind that you've gone out for 4 hours on the bike, which always does help. Yeah.
We said that though. I was speaking to, again, with Duncan about this. Like, surely there's an element of, pride in Christine that, Mike's out for 4 hours taking care of himself and running. Like, surely versus 4 hours of, Mike's here with me, but, he's got his feet up watching the TV.
Yeah, I think that I think there is a great deal of that, but there's also, not kid ourselves, Christine, would get 4 hours of me not in the house, and she's got things she likes to do, and she doesn't want to, if you like, feel guilty that she's, reading a book, putting the, reading the paper.
So you both win.
Yeah, and that's I go back to this, this moving into this last phase in a good relationship. You're living with someone. If you don't allow them to do what they want and be relaxed in their own way, and you do the things with them that they enjoy also. But if you don't, if you judge them for, kicking their feet off and lying down and falling asleep in front of the television, what sort of life is that for them and you?
Yeah.
So you've got to have that. We've sort of gone off piece there for a second.
No, it's cool.
But
You're an Iron Man through that approach. Like, and Christine's allowed is the wrong word, but she's been cool with you doing these.
But you know what? Christine, in I think it was 2016, maybe she did the Surrey Half Marathon.
I remember. Well, I remember very well.
Just incredible, and she was, sort of in her 60s then.
Yeah, she was a good little runner.
Absolutely, she is.
Well, Christine's got energy, man. Christine's got bags of energy. So, well, what's on your list? I feel like.
Well, no. We're good. We're touching on stuff. I just wanted the opportunity at this podcast to kind of inform people of my experience of arriving in my late 60s, knowing that I'm on a time frame now that I believe I can influence how I am going to live the last days of my life with regard to my mental serenity, mental agility, my physical, state, because as I get older, okay, so here's an analogy. So when I started running, I was very keen on PBs. It's interesting when you're late 50s, early 60s that you're actually, going to do personal bests because you've just spent the rest of your life fucking it up, And I did the Surrey Half Marathon in 1 hour 40. I think my best 10K is 45 minutes, and my best 5K is 22 or something like that. And that was 2013, 2014, something like that. So I'm 8 years on. I can't train at those rates now.
Sure.
I'm still putting the same effort in. I'm still doing the distances, and I'm still doing what I can. But I can't train at the rate, that my PBs were set. So life is tailing off, in a sense. My body won't allow me to perform as well. And therefore, I'm probably not climbing the stairs as fast as I used to. I'm not, building IKEA units as fast as I used to. I'm not, do you see what I mean? So life is going to get me. Well, you know what? I'm going to fight that through doing all these things by having interests and goals and attention to fitness and diet, to doing the crossword every day. People do Sudoku, don't they?
Yeah.
I'm going to do all this stuff because I believe, something's going to get me in the end. Well, I want to feel like this until the day before. Yeah? And that's what I believe. And I think if you arrive at the age I am now, or the situation I am now, sort of retired, and you are overweight, you don't have any real interests, you've not paid attention to your relationships with people, and so they're not perfect, or at least, you're not helping them to make them perfect. If you arrive, it's going to be pretty hard to turn around.
Yeah.
So think about it now. Just pay attention to it now.
No, I agree. And what I think you might have missed there as well is what you've got to offer to other people now too.
Okay.
So I already knew this, but then when you started to get involved with the Better Man and the guys, it became more apparent then. So that on the next meetup in December, there's a lad there who's 22.
Okay.
So I'm like, wow, like he's going to learn a lot that day off people that have the wisdom and experience that he doesn't have.
Yes.
And I think that's something that you've got to offer now. But I think that comes from the root of everything you've done and the fact that you know who you are now and you like yourself and you're prepared to share that with people.
Yeah.
It's hard to share yourself if you don't know who you are. It's hard to express yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because there's too much conflict.
Yeah, and also because we all spend too much time looking at other people thinking they should do something different. And actually it's not about that, is it?
No, not at all.
It's about you and making sure you are doing what you should be doing, using your strengths, trying to fix the things that aren't right, or accepting them.
Yeah.
Accepting the fact that you can't make them any better, so avoid them, or just don't let them interfere with anything. And yeah, I think I told you before, I wished, not to blame my father, but I wished he'd sat me down and told me a lot of the stuff that I'm telling other people now.
Yeah, of course.
Because I'd have listened to him. In fact, I'd have been happy if anyone did. And that's why I get the idea of mentoring and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing is I'm really happy with where I am, what I'm doing, how I am, who I'm with, and all those things. And I'd really like everybody else to be in the same position.
Sure. And when I use you as fuel for inspiration, it's not the GB stuff that, I mean, I love that and respect that about you, but it's more the internal work that you've done to get to that place that you've just said. Because that's the journey I'm on, man. You know, you want to wake up and go to bed with yourself knowing that, yeah, I like who I am. I behave well. I do the right thing. Yeah. Most of the time, not all, you know, we're going to fuck up.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, I treated my partner with respect today. I was kind.
Yeah.
I was loving. I didn't withdraw love. And if you go to bed every day and you can't say that, it's the reason why you probably don't want to get up.
Absolutely. And I still beat myself up now for occasions where I wasn't, if you like, how I am. You know, I just something flipped and I, you know, spoke out of turn and or something.
You mean in
like
recent
that.
Past or
oh
past?
Yeah,
past?
no,
Yeah.
still
Yeah,
there
course,
are occasions where I expound this serenity that I feel I have, and this compassion for people, and sometimes, you know, like anyone, I just get a bit annoyed, and I, if you like, use my ability to communicate curtly, and then think, oh, why did you do that?
Do you find it hurts more now when you fall out of alignment?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it does for me too. It might not be as bad as what it used to be in terms of my actions, but the actual feeling that I get when I do fuck up, it's a little bit more painful now.
No, it is painful, and that's one of the things when I first mentioned, because I don't drink, I'm very aware of what I do.
Yeah.
Very aware. And that's why I say I think when you have a drink or you take drugs, you know, you're clearly subduing, you know, the things that tell you what's right, what's good, what's helpful. You're subduing that, and so you don't care. And, you know, you can say what you like and do what you like, and it doesn't matter. But actually, that's not you, and it's not helpful. You know, I really like to influence situations so that the person I'm with or the people I'm with have the best time they can.
Yeah.
Or learn the most, or whatever it is. I really like that.
No, I get it. And what that requires is for you to be your best. That's what I love about that attitude. Like, you can't achieve that if you're not your best, Mike Moore. You just can't. Like, how can you impact others in a positive way if you're not doing the work yourself? It all comes back to this.
Yeah, sure.
It all comes back to this, doesn't it?
And I forgive myself for I can become opinionated. And if Christine was here, she'd be laughing, you know, because she knows that. But you know what? I think 50% of what I say she takes on board, you know.
Sure.
And I take all of what she says on board.
Well, you still want to stand for something, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, so opinionated, again, blessing, curse, I'm not sure. But I want to stand for something. And I want to have the courage to say as well if I stand for something. So if there's something you say today that I really don't agree with, like, that's cool. We can have that conversation. I think people have lost that art. It's like, well, if you don't agree with me, me and you aren't friends. So, well, that's bullshit.
Yes.
You know?
And I can't.
I know there's something that rolls you up a little bit, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've spoken about this, the ability to disagree. And it is an ability, by the way. And it needs compassion. For me to sit here and totally disagree with something that you're saying.
Yes.
I've got to be good.
And not to be hurt by the fact that something I say is said in a certain way because it needs to be. Well, you're offending me now. You raised your voice, or you spoke a little bit too harshly. You didn't say please and thank you.
Yeah.
But you know what? The best teams, and I might have said this before on the previous podcast, I'm not sure, but I'll say it again anyway. The best teams do not deal with those sorts of insecurities.
Sure.
You know, the best teams understand that if someone speaks to you in a certain way, it's because it's important that something happens or that the message gets across. And they'll accept that you speak in that way. I worked for British Gymnastics for a number of years, volunteers. I announced at competitions, you know, in national and international. I actually did the Olympic Games, of course, and the O2. And it's a really high-pressured situation. And you do a competition like that, or not like the Olympics, it's every 4 years, but national competitions, there'd be about 5 or 6 a year. And you'd turn up and you'd meet this team of people. You know, you'd have judges, you'd have administrators, you'd have music people, I'd be on the mic, and you'd organise this thing. And they had to go right. The public want to see something that doesn't fall apart and what have you. So, you know, the team came together rarely, and we had to be able to be robust with each other. For Christ's sake, get this done now, without someone saying, "Oh, don't speak to me like that."
Yeah.
But that comes out of understanding that I'm only urgent about it because something needs doing, because we're doing this show and it needs to be right.
Yeah.
And once teams get that, and you don't get upset because somebody, you know, is, you know, speaking to you that they normally wouldn't do. They'd normally say, "Oh, please, can you, you know, get around to that?" You know, things have to happen. You know, once you get that, you can do anything. You know, a team like that who doesn't get upset with each other about the way things are communicated during the period of that kind of activity really perform well.
And I think it strengthens relationships. So I think one of the reasons you and I are still friends after all this time is because we are honest with each other. So if I come to you with a problem or an issue or a question, what I do know about you is that you'll deliver it with compassion, of course, but the main concern won't be my feelings.
No.
It'll be giving me an honest answer to the question that I've asked.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that is the reason that I will come and speak to you for advice.
Yes.
Because I want you to tell me the truth. Yeah, you know, that's what I want to hear. That's what I'm asking you for.
Yeah.
However, there are some friends in my life that I will ask them the question if I know what they, you know, if I know the answer that they're going to say. If I know they're going to protect my feelings. And I think the people you love can do that most sometimes. My mum and dad are a good example. I think they would want to protect my feelings,
Yes.
perhaps more than the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Whereas good friends, strong friends, mentors that are maybe a little bit more at distance from you can give you the straight up answer. But that takes courage on both halves. Yeah. One, courage from me to ask, and two, courage from you to deliver the truth.
Yeah.
That's what a good friendship is.
No,
well.
absolutely a good friendship, because you will meet people, you know, on occasions, and they'll say something and you'll totally disagree. You'll think they're being, I don't know, weak or awkward and this, that and the other. And you won't tell you, go, "Oh, yes, okay, yeah, well, it's probably not the way I would do it, but I respect your..." And what you really want to say is, get real. No. The answer, you know, is this, or you ought... And you can only do that when you've developed a depth of communication where feelings are okay, and you can communicate in such a way where you know that if you say something, you're not upsetting someone, you know, and that happens over time. Sure. I think. Yeah.
But when we meet, I don't want to leave thinking that... All I want to leave is knowing that we've had a truthful, honest conversation. You know, and that everything's been said that needs to be said. That's what I enjoy. Yeah. Kind of, it's no filter. We don't do too much small talk, right? We get to the good stuff.
Absolutely.
And I don't leave thinking, I wonder if Mike just said that so that I wouldn't get upset.
Yes.
Because then I'm questioning your character too.
Sorry, just waving at Christine.
Hello, Christine. We'll be 5 minutes. Yeah. That, by the way, does Christine like Nando's? Because me and you are big Nando's fans. We're probably going to end up there. I just don't know if Christine knows it.
She has done Nando's from time to time.
I think we can convince her today.
And when we were first courting, we went to Nando's. I can't think where it was, before the cinema. Okay. And so... How
did that go down, all right?
Yeah, no, she's fine. Yeah.
Want to go there today?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a final question, if I may. It's a traditional Better Man question.
Go on then.
I don't know whether you've heard it on any of the podcasts. So obviously, being called the Better Man, out of all the areas that exist in your life now and the goals, ambitions that you've got, what one area do you feel like you might need to work on in order to become a better person, a better man, a kinder man, a more compassionate man? What is it that you would put on the top of the list of things for you to go and work on?
don't lower my standards. All right. Remember just how living the way I do makes me feel, and don't let those standards drop just because life's a bit tough, life's a bit tired. Just keep on keeping on, and try and contribute to the people that you interact with, that you can do, so that they may benefit, or at the very least enjoy your company.
That's a good point, man. It's nice to make other people's lives better for your existence, isn't it?
If it's possible, absolutely.
It's
and I've got friends who make my life better,
Sure.
so I get it.
So do I. Yeah. And the cool thing is now I choose only to hang out with those people that make my life better. And that's quite a cool thing.
Yes.
And going back to career-wise as well, when you get to pick the people that you spend time with, that's pretty important too.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. And by the way, thanks for being such a great friend all these years.
Oh no, it's been great, and to see you develop as you have. Honestly, I didn't think you'd be here now, in the sense of what you've developed, as personal development, and how you've been able to use that to help benefit other people as well. Because when I first knew you, you pushed weights. You did it very well. but now look at you. Yeah. I probably haven't took too much time to step back and reflect. But I didn't think I'd be here either. It's been a battle. Yeah,
Still is, by the way.
Yeah. You hid it well back then.
I'm not sure, but again, booze was everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant place to hide behind.
Yes.
Booze and all of
Especially if you get enough bottles, you can just crouch down behind it. Yeah.
So it's been a battle. Still, like I say, it still is, and you have to get up each day, I think, and like you say, do the things that you know are good for you.
Yeah.
So that you can be a decent person.
Yeah. Hey, on a positive note, just to let all our listeners know, my 6th grandchild arrived on the 23rd of October. Ben's and Angelo's first, which is lovely. 6, yeah. And my eldest grandchild is 22. And my youngest one is a few days.
Yeah, wow. That's crazy.
Isn't it?
But what a good example you are to them.
Well, let's hope so.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome, Alex. Let's go get some food.
Yeah, I can't wait, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Mike, thanks, man. That was great.
Yeah.